Herzlich willkommen zu unserer Projektvorstellung Linked Open Tafsīr. Es ist nur ein Teil des Teams, also wir drei sind nur repräsentativ hier natürlich. Also das Team ist noch viel größer, aber wir sind diejenigen, die das Projekt jetzt vorstellen dürfen. Es ist natürlich, wir versuchen das so ausführlich wie möglich zu machen, aber auch nicht zu detailliert unnötige Details zu geben, sondern dass man so eine ungefähre Ahnung davon bekommt, was wir gemacht haben, was das mit der künstlichen Intelligenz, mit Digital Humanities und Dabei zu tun hat. Ich werde dann später nochmal ein konkretes Beispiel in Bezug auf religiöse Gruppierungen, jüdische, christliche und andere Gruppierungen, so ein Beispiel geben, worauf man achten muss, wie wir das versucht haben zu kategorisieren, aber alles erstmal Step by Step. Wir haben uns auch entschieden, dass wir das so ein bisschen bilingual machen, Misbahur, damit er sich frei fühlt in der Erzählung, dass er eine generelle Einführung auf Englisch erstmal gibt und wir werden dann auf Deutsch so ein bisschen diese Details dann nennen und so. Ja, wir können also auch in der Diskussionsrunde beide Sprachen benutzen, fühlen Sie sich einfach frei. Misbahur, I think it's your turn. Take the mic.
With mic, okay. So it should be something like. Well, anyway, it's okay. It's fine. Okay, so welcome to everybody, and we just have to present overall concept of the project, because beyond the project we have individual research. For example, I have my own research. Tuğrul has his own, and Ǧaʿfar has his own research, and all of the other team members. But it is the general project, overall concept of the project that I'll be presenting today. The project is called Linked Open Tafsīr. The name is very general. Tafsīr, it could be anything. I mean, it could be any tafsir. There are hundreds of tafsir. And the reason for this is, I would say, two reasons. First of all, because the project was conceptualized to be a pilot project for future expansion, which means tafsir in general, we could add more tafsir as well. But then, why tafsir? Because tafsir is kind of the subject which has all the other fields included. For example, tafsir will have fiqh, it will have kalam, it will have all other fields that one can think of in the classical Islam. So in this sense, it's kind of inclusive. So the first thing was that tafsir is general, all the tafsir, and tafsir in itself includes all the other fields. So this is why this title was selected. And linked, as you know, technology, the Web3 technologies, and open, which means anyone can access it. Then there are two sides of the project. First is that we are studying Tafsīr Dabari again as a start. The second thing is that we are preparing a technology for the presentation, visualization, and analysis of Tafsīr Dabari. And as you know, technology is not limited to a specific book. That means once the technology is there, we could add as many books as we want in the future. We could expand it further and further. So both of the things are very important in this sense. In other words, the first goal actually depends on the second one. And then, of course, based on this, we have all research projects and everything. Now, here we say Tafsīr Dabari, but Tafsīr Dabari is not just a small book. It's a very huge book. In other words, 26 volumes. The famous Turkey edition is 26 volumes, 18,000 pages, and it has 40,000, a little bit less than 38,500 hadiths, which is more than double than all the hadiths in the 6 major hadith collections. So, and these 40,000 hadiths is, of course, beside all the other material that there is. Now, first I'll talk a little bit about the technologies. When we read a book, normally we take, at the beginning there are people used to read, let's say, manuscripts, and came the printed books. Now we have the digital books. When we read a book, normally we don't realize it, but we process a lot of information as human beings. Technology is something that normally every step has to be documented. I mean, the things that you normally take for granted, in technology they all go step by step, and step by step they learn from those kind of things. So when I read a book, for example, even if it's a simple book, let's say this is Tafsīr Dabei, if I just say this, it also has some information that we understand. For Dabei wrote Tafsīr, Dabei wrote Ǧāmi' al-Bayan. So Dabei wrote Ǧāmi' al-Bayan, 3 different words. And Dabei, we know that Dabei is kind of the person. But computer doesn't know that. And wrote, for example, it's a verb, or Tafsīr Dabei or Ǧāmi' al-Bayan, it's a book title. So when we read this sentence, we don't think about it, we just understand it. For computer, we have to tell the computer what exactly this sentence means. And once the computer learns it, of course, it will then remember it forever. This is the good thing about the technology. In this sense, what all of us read, we can give it to computer, and the computer will remember it. Everyone else can benefit from it. As comparison to that, people used to take notes. When we were reading something, we would write note at the beginning. How did this commentary and which we call sharh or hashia, the glosses, how did they start? They start exactly like this. You're reading a book, and in this book you have extra information. Those information you write it down, and later it becomes a commentary, and on the commentary there becomes a hashia. With gradually these things develop from this kind of interpretation. We normally have printed books. People write a lot of notes on those kind of books. But these kind of things are good for personal usage, but for computer it's kind of difficult to understand. For computer, you have to tell it in the language of the computer that what exactly it is, and then the computer understands it, and then it remembers it. Now, from these kind of notes, as I mentioned before, only we can benefit from it, the person who wrote it, or maybe another person who can read this book, and they can perhaps understand it and benefit from it. However, now there are 2 steps that I'm kind of skipping. In the modern world, we have digital text. In this digital text also we can take notes, and those notes we can search them, so they are better than those notes, but still they are not as computer friendly as they should be. People did try, and they have been doing it from the very beginning. Let's say we had this kind of search, very simple kind of search, just one thing, you write something and it will search it for you. And you have to write exact thing. For example, in Arabic normally we have these problems. For example, we have Zamma, Fatha, Kasra, so these diacritical marks, they always are kind of problematic. We have Alif Lam sometimes without Alif Lam. So these kind of issues are there. At the beginning it was bigger problem, now it's lesser problem, but still things are developing. As you know about the famous Maktaba Shamila, which introduced multiple search fields together with waw and aw. It means or and those kind of searches. And because of this it became very famous. But still, if you have tried Shamila and you try to search something, you will have to go through, if you go through 100 results, you will find maybe 10 of them which are relevant to you, which is a huge waste of time. Of course, it's very useful then as compared to printed book, but still it's kind of not searching or kind of giving you what exactly you want. So especially the case, let's say if you search Umar, you want to find, for example, Umar ibn Khattab, but there would be at least 20, 30, or maybe 50 other Umar who will come up, and you will have no idea how to find, the Umar that you are looking for. Then the same thing, for example, you trying to find Umar, but his name is not written as Umar, but Ibn al-Khattab, for example. And many people normally have a lot of, this is another problem with Arabic, maybe the classical Islam, that we don't have any standard names for anyone. There are, for single person, there will be 10 different names. There is kunya, there is nasab, shuhra, and laqab, and a lot of different kind of names, that you have for people. So because of this, it becomes very difficult to find a specific person in a book. Now, Shamila helps you a lot, but but it's still not useful enough. So you have to tell the computer exactly what a specific word means. And this means that you have to give it, instruction in the computer's language, which means you can give it as many instructions as you want. You can tell him about every word, but most of the words normally computers are good enough there to understand. I mean, most of the words. Only the specific terminologies and specific words that are relevant to us, it's a bit difficult. And also, because we would also want to know only the words that are relevant to us. Other words normally are not that important. So for example, وَغَيْرِهِمْ, it might be important in general, but maybe not so much in terms of research, direct research, let's say. So because of this, we had to also decide what information is important that we have to annotate. So if you have to read Dabei, a lot of things, what exactly should we tell the computer to remember it? Now we read let's say Dabei 1 time or 2 times, 3 times, whatever times we read it, as we normally do for the research. We will take those information, and those information is saved forever. Anyone then who wants to find some specific information in Dabei, they don't have to read the whole book again. 1 person or 2 person or 3 people read it, and that's enough. But if there is something lacking, and the person thinks, okay, I have another idea, for example, this book has, let's say, for example, fiqh information, but it doesn't have kalam information, I won't read it for kalam, my topic is kalam. They could read it and they could add those information, and then those information will be available to everyone. So in this sense, 1 person's notes are available to everyone. And this makes it very useful. Now, what exactly are the information that we wanted to take? Some of the information are coming in the future. There are a lot of things, but I will only mention the basic things which are, I would say, relevant for today's circle. The first thing we wanted to take was, of course, these important information, the person, every person in the book, every location in the book, groups and time, it's called named entities, other important information, for example, the name of the angels or books or things like that. So all the things which are basically names. So all the names were tagged. Then we thought about topics, so related to Tafsīr. I have written here topics, but we normally call it categories. We have the different concepts in there which are not exactly, in a strict sense, it's not a topic, but I wrote here topics just to make it simple. So we had to choose specific topics. We of course started, and at the beginning of the project it was understood that we will have only specific topics, which was, I have it here, but I think it will be a bit time consuming to go through those things. But there were very few things, let's say hadith and rawi, and 2 or 3 things about naskh, or 2 or 3 things about asbab. And only these kind of things were there. But then gradually, when we were tagging and we were reading the whole book, we kind of kept expanding and expanding. When you read the book, of course, new information come to you, and you think this information is also important, and then you create a new tag for that. And because of this, the tags were increasing and increasing and increasing. And from just, let's say, 10 or 15 tags, it reached to more than 100 different tags, or 100 different concepts that we are tagging in this book. So these are the main topics, but based on these topics, we have then subtopics, and in subtopics, we have then different kinds of tags, what information are important. This is now one of the, let's say, in naskh, We have nasikh and mansukh. This is only about nasikh, yes. It's only about nasikh and some of the information about nasikh. This is only a few, so I took a screenshot. For asbab al-nuzul, there is actually too many. I think more than 30 different concepts that are there in asbab al-nuzul. So because of this was too much, so I couldn't get it here. But if you see here, you can take a specific ayah as this ayah is nasikha. And this, sometimes Dabei will just say this ayah is nasikha. That's it, doesn't say anything else. Sometimes say this ayah is nasikha li hazihi surah. So this is nasikh for surah, this is nasikh for a specific ayah, or for a specific, he, for example, mentioned hazihi nasikha li ayat is-sayf. Now you have to, take this information, but you cannot, even if you know what ayat is-sayf mean, but he didn't say it, so we don't want to give it our own meaning, to say that ayat is-sayf means this ayah specifically. So we have to take it as ayat is-sayf. So he says this is ayah nasikha li ayat is-sayf, so it will take exactly like this. So the same thing, ayah nasikha li hijra, li sunnah or urf, or etc., etc. All these different concepts. The same thing about mansukh. You have different takes for those kind of things. Now when a person comes and he wants to search about all the ayat nasikha in Dabei, you can find it. Or ayat mansukha, you can exactly find it. Or if you want to, all the ayat which Dabei thinks is nasikha li ayat is-sayf, so you can find it. Or all the ayat, for example, which are nasikha li sunnah or urf, or for example, nasakhat specific concept. Let's say there are also the concept of qira'at. Qira'at also, it has more than 20, 30 different takes, more than 30 different takes, I think. So it's also very huge concept of qira'at in there, where then you can find, for example, mushaf of a specific person, or the qira'ah of specific person, the qira'ah of specific location. Let's say it's the qira'ah of Ubay ibn Ka'b, or this is the qira'ah of Medina, or Mecca, or Sham, or things like that. So all these different kinds of concepts are tagged. So, but this was just one example of that. If you at the end, if you have any further questions about it, of course you will be welcome. So here, for example, again, I gave you a few examples of those kind of things. Now, let's say if you are taking the hadith, I only gave these main parts of the hadith. Every hadith is tagged, so if you want to find all the hadiths, you can find them. Every sanad is tagged, you can find specific sanad, you can find it. Every matan is tagged, every rawi is tagged individually. And also inside the rawi, of course, there is sahabi, there is the sheikh of the Dabei, and or general rawi, for example. So all of them are tagged exactly, which could be found. The topics, again. Now, of course, you have tagged all these information, but how do you find it? That's the main part. So for this, you need kind of, the technology. Normally, nowadays, you have the search engines. They would just find you the word by what you write. So if you write something, as I mentioned, for example, the example of Umar. If you write Umar, they will find you Umar. They won't find you Ibn Khattab, for example. So those are specific kind of, search engines that will give you those kind of information which you are typing exactly. Here, and also you have very limited choice of what exactly you can ask. For example, you can ask this and this or this, but specific words. That's it. You cannot go beyond this. You can only search. Even when you search for topics, these are not exactly topics. If you have seen online the topics, it's automatically tagged, so you don't find exactly the topics that are there. For example, when we were tagging manually every nasikh, so if you are manually tagging it, sometimes the word nasikh is not mentioned at all. But still, you know that it's nasikh. Let's say, هذه الآية ثابتة or muhkama. So you know that even though there is no naskh word, but it's related to naskh. So then you find everything that is there if you're doing it manually, which is of course time consuming, which I will come to, but it's useful. So this annotation will only help if you have the complex search logic, and or not is all there. But for example, here is one example of the website. Let's say at the top you have verse, hadith, and commentary that you can find. Inside the verse you can see, you can give chapter number here, it means surah number, so surah number, verse number, and then theme or the topic. Let's say you want to find specific topic in a specific, let's say, surah. So let's say you want to find anything related to kalam in Surah Al-Baqarah or maybe Surah Al-Imran. You can find it. Then you want to more specify it further, which mentions something specific. All the things that I mentioned before, let's say you want to find a verse with a specific topic, which mentions a specific person or a specific location. Then you can write it here. The add at the other side, as I will show you later, you can click it and you can add another one. So I want to have this person and this person. Okay. All right, thank you. Yeah, all right. So here is this add. So you can click it, and as you will see, you can have multiple fields. So you search here, for example, here you say, I want a person. Then here you write, for example, Umar, and add, and they say a location, for example, Medina, and add another one. I want also the time, 2 years before Hijrah. And then you come to this one, and you say, in commentary, there should be mentioned this verse. So I want to find, for example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, this theme, this thing, but also a passage or a topic, or a paragraph where this verse is mentioned as a commentary. And this verse is to explain this verse, etc., etc. Then you want to also add the hadith perspective. So you can add from a hadith perspective, this verse has this hadith, and I will come to hadith later, so we can then discuss it here. But all these are, for example, about the specific verse. Let's say if I want to go to hadith, this is the simple view of the hadith search. So you want to find a hadith with this topic, and which has a narrator. This narrator, you can add multiple narrators, for example, with and which mentions, for example, a location or whatever, all the things. And then you can add this. Yes, from the perspective of ayah. So you can say, this, I want to find this hadith with this rawi, with this topic, with this location, but which also is part of this verse, and which also mentions specific rawi or location or anything. So you find hadith, but which has this verse, and this verse has this details. And this is the visual representation. Of course, if you want to write your own queries, sky is the limit. You can kind of have 20 different parameters, or 30 or maybe 100 parameters, it's up to you. But of course, this depends on the computer processor. If processor is good, then of course you can have 100 or 1,000 parameters that you want. For example, it should have this and not have this and not this and this. So all the different concepts that you want to have, you can easily have them. Now, as I said, you can add, let's say, this add one. So you want to have category with this value, and you add another one, or you delete one. So you can add or delete any categories that you want inside this search box. And then you can search, and you can find exactly. Then of course you can search inside the comment. This was the verse. This is hadith, and there's a commentary, which means like the hadith and non-hadith included. We have two kinds of paragraphs. One paragraph is the hadith paragraphs, and one paragraph is not hadith paragraphs. So it will find you not just the hadith, but also all the paragraphs which are not hadith, but the commentary or the tafsir of Dabei. So you can also search in that. Now, of course, if you have worked so much on this, on these annotations, which takes years and a lot of effort, to annotate all this data, it would be very, very difficult to do it all manually in the future forever for all the books. And the good news is that we nowadays have machine learning concepts and models where, of course, you need at the beginning manual data so the machine can learn from it. And a lot of data, as much as you have, the more you have, the better the machine will learn. And also, the data should be accurate. I mean, if you don't have very good data, of course the machine will learn wrong, and it will also annotate wrong. So when the machine learns something, then of course it can annotate the rest of the data itself. Now what we have done, and Ǧaʟfar here, he worked on the machine learning models for two things: name entity recognitions and topic modeling. And we have for this more than 95% accuracy. So machine learns from our data, and when it annotates the rest of the data itself, perhaps Ǧaʟfar can talk about it more, but it annotates with more than 95, the text that it annotates is accurately annotated more than 95% of time. So it means only 5% errors. But you also have to keep in mind that this much error, also human beings do make this much error. So when normally we make annotations by the human beings, we normally have double or triple annotations, and we ask them to do it the second time, and we want to compare them and see this time annotation and this time, the second time annotation, how much difference is there. So there is normally a difference. The same person, they annotate 2 times, and they have different concept 2 different times. So the machine, of course, also has errors. The humans also have errors. But with time, when we have more and more data, we hope the machine will learn more and more, and it will get better and better with time. From this perspective, it's just the beginning. We had this huge book, and we annotated it. So for annotation, of course, we had an annotation system, which I didn't talk about it today because I don't think it's kind of technical things. People would be really interested in that to learn about it. But if anyone is interested, of course, if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer it. But the specific annotation system, as I said, that the computer should understand what exactly it means. So you have to tell it in those kind of languages. And then we have machine learning. And then we have, of course, as I showed you, the search technology, which is how you find those kind of information, which again, we had to reinvent, because I don't think there's any other search engine that could provide this information. This is why we had to reinvent the concept of how do we search the information. And completely new data model we have created for our search engine, which, as you can see, can complex any kind of data. Of course, we had a lot of problems. As you know, another problem with Arabic is also that most of the developers have a hard time coding for it. If you have worked with Arabic file in the Word, even normal file, and there is English information, English words inside, you know how difficult it is, to manage it, that when you write some English, the word goes here and the other word goes there. So because this is left to right and right to left, you mix it, and in the code you don't have any other option. You cannot code in Arabic, so you have to write it in English. So it's right to left and left to right, and it makes a lot of problems for the coders, and this is why sometimes the problem is very difficult to solve. And because of this, we had a lot of issues, but luckily we were able to solve most of the issues, and we have now a functioning database, which we will show live hopefully in next month in our conference on 18th July. With more details. Now, again, as I mentioned, there's a whole team behind it. Of course, a huge book, no one person can do it. And also because we have all the different subjects that I showed you, so one person is not, expert of all these different fiqh and kalam and Sufism and scientific concepts and all the things, seerah and all these things we have, things. So some of the, which are core people in the project mentioned here in Frankfurt, they're in Berlin, they're in Gießen, and of course we have some associates who are working with us and fellows who have been working with us and came here, and further details, as I mentioned, will be, and the live demo will be in our conference. And thank you very much for your attention. If you have any further questions, of course, you're welcome to ask.
Das ist ein kurzer Vortrag, auch wenn das 18 Folien hier sind, die werde ich nur zeigen und ein bisschen. Ich denke, ich habe geplant, dass wir eine halbe Stunde für eine Diskussion haben, deswegen werde ich so 8, 9 Minuten in Anspruch nehmen. Mir geht es so um konkrete Beispiele, wie erstens auch zu zeigen, wo wir Probleme hatten bei der Bestimmung und wie wir versucht haben, einiges zu erleichtern. Neben dieser ganzen Datenbank, Misbah hat ja einen Teil unserer Webseite gezeigt, unserer Suchfunktionen. Das ist bezüglich der Datenbank. Wir haben natürlich auch auf unserer Website versucht, etwas anzubieten, womit wir die Suche auch erleichtern. Für diejenigen, die in einem bestimmten Bereich etwas suchen. Dazu haben wir unterschiedliche Tools angeboten, Koranchronologien, und wir haben einiges versucht zu visualisieren, anhand einer Map zu arbeiten. Das wird alles noch auf der Website, inshallah, hoffentlich können wir bald zum Abschluss kommen mit der Website, zur Verfügung gestellt. Und da wollte ich nur auf ein Problem hinweisen oder wie wir dann vorgegangen sind. Ich habe hier zum Beispiel so querbeet Begriffe aufgenommen, ohne Struktur. Das sind mehr oder weniger alles Begriffe, die mit dem Makroumfeld des Korans etwas zu tun haben. Anfangs dachten wir, Makroumfeld, damit kommen wir klar. Das ist alles eben vielleicht nicht direkt islamisches, alle Überlieferungen. Damit könnten wir einen Bereich abdecken. Wir haben aber bemerkt, nach intensiver Beschäftigung, dass es gar nicht so einfach ist, weil Makroumfeld, ja, da tauchen Begriffe auch auf, da wird jüdisch-christlich gesagt zum Beispiel. Dabei erwähnt etwas zu Juden oder zu Christen und nennt auch den Begriff, den arabischen Begriff oder einige Begriffe. Dann haben wir aber gemerkt, ja, aber da gibt es unterschiedliche Begriffe. Und nicht nur in Bezug auf die Beschreibung der religiösen Gruppe, sondern was mit deren Ritualen, religiösem Habitus zu tun hat, gibt es Details, aber auch in Bezug auf deren Glauben. Also gibt es diese Begriffe, es gibt Begrifflichkeiten, es gibt aber auch bestimmte Persönlichkeiten. Wir haben hier eine Gruppe in Bezug auf Personen, ja, wir haben da Personen, aber bestimmte Gruppen werden immer im Kontext des Christentums erwähnt. Bestimmte Personen werden nur im Kontext der Juden erwähnt. Also haben wir uns gedacht, da müssten wir auch eine Kategorisierung anbieten können, also neben diesen Kategorien auch Subkategorien, und selbst unter diesen Subkategorien haben wir dann auch versucht, ja, die Suche zu erleichtern. Also das, was ich jetzt erkläre, ist natürlich auch eine subjektive Herangehensweise. Das ist nicht diese Computersprache, die ein System hat, wo man dann nach bestimmten Mustern geht. Deswegen gehört auch auf der Webseite auch immer eine Erklärung dazu, dass wir das auf Grundlage von. Und dann wird dann auch immer erklärt, auf welcher Grundlage wir dann diese Kategorisierungen dann auch gemacht haben. Name zum Beispiel, wenn wir sagen, wir haben Namen. Die Prophetennamen, das sind auch Namen. Jetzt ist das Problem, es gibt einmal die Propheten, die im Koran dann namentlich erwähnt werden. Und bei At-Tabari gibt es Propheten, die im Koran nicht erwähnt werden. Also so wie Caleb bin Jefuna und Haikuk, also in Anlehnung an den biblischen Habakkuk. Sergius, da gibt es so viele Namen. Ich habe hier einige Beispiele. Irmia in Anlehnung an Jeremia, Shem'on, Simon, Khalid bin Sinan und so weiter und so fort, die erwähnt werden, die müssen dann natürlich auch kategorisiert werden, haben wir uns gedacht. Und wir sollten dann anhand von solchen Tabellen denjenigen, die sich hier vertiefen wollen, so eine Erleichterung für die Suche vielleicht bitten. Das gilt in Bezug auf die Namen. Dann gibt es noch natürlich andere Namen, Human Names, also andere Menschen, aber auch nicht menschliche Wesen werden dann natürlich erwähnt. Die sollte man dann auch nochmal anders kategorisieren. So eine Kategorisierung haben wir vorgenommen. Ich überspringe das in Bezug auf die religiösen Gruppen. Ich hatte es ja gerade erwähnt, das ist mit das Komplizierteste gewesen. Wir dachten am Anfang, dass wir die Israeliat, das ist ja auch nochmal eine Kategorie, unter Makroumfeld irgendwie erwähnen können, aber das ist überhaupt nicht möglich. Israeliat ist etwas völlig anderes. Also Israeliat, das was die muslimischen Exegeten, bei uns jetzt speziell At-Tabari, von hauptsächlich jüdischen christlichen Quellen, sowohl kanonisch als auch apokryph oder deuterokanonische Werke des Christentums oder des Judentums genommen hat und in Anlehnung an, okay, der Koran erzählt das jetzt nur rudimentär, nur so fragmentarisch, wir ergänzen das jetzt. Also aus diesem, ich habe jetzt in 30 Sekunden erklärt, was Israeliat ist. Ich mache Werbung um 15:30 Uhr habe ich im Panel, da werde ich was über die Israeliat sagen, da können Sie gerne kommen. Aber wir haben gemerkt, das geht nicht. Das sind Überlieferungen, das ist noch subjektiver. Zu sagen, diese Überlieferung ist Israeliat, Sie würden mir wahrscheinlich glauben, wenn ich Ihnen das argumentieren würde, aber es kann auch jemand kommen, der sagt, ja, das ist aber für mich nicht Israel, das ist genuin islamisch. Das ist so diese Problematik, also haben wir das voneinander total getrennt. Wir haben das Erdian genannt, also Makroumfeld oder religiöse Gruppen, und dann unter den religiösen Gruppen haben wir dann nochmal eine Trennung vollzogen. Also Sie sehen hier links die Bezeichnung, die Dabei verwendet. Diese Bezeichnung sollte man nicht verwenden, zum Beispiel Jakobier, Jakobiten. Wird eigentlich auch im deutschen oder englischen Kontext gesagt, ist natürlich nicht richtig. Das sind die westsyrischen Christen. Und dann noch, also wenn man nicht nur die Begriffe auflistet, dann kommen immer wieder Nebenprodukte bei raus, die natürlich sehr gut, also ich bin verantwortlich für Makroumfeld, für Israeliat. Das ist natürlich gut, da kann man so viel publizieren. Also allein schon, wenn man betrachtet, welche Begriffe Dabei verwendet für Christen und dann einfach mal nur drauf schaut, ja, was sagt er denn dann zu dieser Gruppierung, bekommt man ein ganz anderes, ganz interessantes Bild von Christen, die Dabei zum Beispiel hatte. Dann kann man das noch weiter, Nesturiya, Nasara, Nejra, Nasara Beni Taghlib, eine ganz sonderbare Gruppe, die kurz erwähnt wird, ohne weitere Details zu nennen. Und dann gibt es natürlich noch die Melkaniye. Das ist so das Problem, was wir versucht haben zu erfassen und auch denjenigen, die eben diese Researches in diesem Bereich machen, so eine Hilfe zu bieten. Das gilt nicht nur in Bezug auf die religiösen Gruppen, Rituale, Locations, aber nicht Locations, also im generellen Sinne, sondern die man nur in Bezug auf religiöse Gruppen in Verbindung setzen kann. Und wenn man all das zusammensammelt und versucht dann zu definieren, oder zu extrahieren erstmal, nicht definieren, extra, Moment, das überspringe ich, das ist in Bezug auf Israel, zu extrahieren und alle Überlieferungen, die in Bezug auf Israel erwähnt werden, alle Überlieferungen, die in Bezug auf diese Adyan, diese religiösen Gruppen unter anderem erwähnt werden, dann kann man bestimmte Muster erkennen. Also das kann man machen, ohne dass die Maschine das schon macht. Die Maschine wird dann wahrscheinlich noch mal weitergehen. Man hat dann bestimmte Isnad, also Überliefererketten, die einen dann, wenn man diese Überliefererkette nimmt und bestimmte Begriffe nimmt, dann kommt eine Überlieferung aus einer Quelle der syrischen Christen. Das war zum Beispiel ein Thema meiner Dissertation, deswegen habe ich die Ergebnisse meiner Dissertation hier mit eingebaut. Das ist, wie gesagt, aber alles subjektiv, das wird alles erklärt, aber das ist zumindest mal eine Sicht, zu zeigen, wie man mit solchen Daten, mit solchen Statistiken, ich habe hier einige erwähnt, auf die ich nicht eingehen werde, aber damit Sie das sehen können, das sind alles nur Überlieferungen in Bezug auf die Israeliat, wie man das anhand von einer Statistik dann nochmal ausmachen kann, und das hilft uns in unserer Forschung, so ein detaillierteres Bild, ein ausführlicheres Bild über religiöse Gruppen, über das Nicht-Islamische in den Tafsīr-Werken zu finden. Das sollte nur so eine kleine so eine Übersicht sein. Hier nochmal weitere Fakten. Also das Projekt verspricht sehr viel. Wir haben, glaube ich, gar keine andere Chance mehr. Das ist ein Herzensprojekt, auch wenn das Projekt jetzt im August beendet werden muss, weil die Zeit jetzt, also weil die Förderung nicht mehr weitergeht, aber ich denke, das ist etwas, womit man noch Jahre arbeiten kann, und wir haben uns ja extra auch für Dabei entschieden. Das war vielleicht nicht die klügste Entscheidung aus Sicht des Arbeitsaufwandes, weil Dabei so viele Volumes geschrieben hat, und Dabei gibt ja keine wirklichen Erklärungen immer, wenn er zum Beispiel ein Ravi benutzt, ich habe ihn benutzt, er heißt wie folgt, du kannst Informationen über ihn hier finden, sondern er berichtet von so vielen unterschiedlichen Quellen. Wir haben uns gedacht, wenn wir Dabei packen, wenn wir Dabei erfassen können, dann wird es bei den anderen Quellen einfacher sein, und ich hoffe, dass wir das dann auch wirklich anwenden können, und genau, das sollte von meiner Seite sein. Ist genau 10:30 Uhr und ich habe damit mein Ziel erreicht. Vielen Dank.